This video is part of a webinar series on Hindudvesha, an educational series to explore and expose systemic Hinduphobia. This project is sponsored by AHAD, American Hindus Against Defamation, an initiative of the World Hindu Council of America, and Dharma Civilization Foundation.
So we are introducing a term called Hindudvesha. We'll have a lot to say about its relationship with the other term, the cognate term Hinduphobia. Now, we want to start with the question, what is a phobia? A phobia, very simply, is, as per the dictionary, an extreme or irrational fear of or aversion to something. Now, if you look at it in that sense, the question really that arises naturally is there or is there not a visceral fear of Hindus or Hinduism really? Is it widespread? After all, what is there to be so scared about the Hindus? The Hindus have not historically threatened anyone. The Hindus have not launched proselytizing missions, not tried to conquer and colonize the entire world, not enslaved, exterminated whole people like others have done. Now, if you look at the two terms, Dvesha versus phobia. So, if you look at Dvesha, you get dislike and hatred. If you get phobia, you get fear and horror. Where they converge is repulsion and aversion. So, here is a definition. Hindudvesha is a Sanskrit word. The Dvesha is a Sanskrit word meaning aversion, repulsion, or hatred. A deep-rooted emotional response that negatively influences one's perception of the world. Something or some phenomenon in one's world. Dvesha, like systemic racism or anti-Semitism, is an ambient, all-encompassing discourse that denigrates and delegitimizes Hinduism, the Hindu people, as it relentlessly problematizes, dehumanizes, demonizes them as in the Hindus. Its accusatory rhetoric treats Hindus as objects or patients to be examined and diagnosed. It presupposes and concludes that something about the Hindus and Hinduism is irredeemably bad, wrong, evil, demonic. For example, here is a colonial era example taken from James Mill's History of British India. Now, every single adjective that's used in this extract have been used to describe the Hindus by James Mill. And this book, History of British India, became standard textbook material for all the British who participated in the governance of India in the colonial era. Now, if you look at the colonial roots of Hindudvesha, here is how it all started, right? There was what happened, and this discourse about what happened. Colonizer and the colonized. British were the colonizers. India was colonized. To use a Marxist lens, were the exploiters, and India got exploited. Victims of this exploitation. But the discourse about what happened was transformed. It was different. It was framed differently. The British were presented their own self-definition as emancipators, as civilizers. What were they civilizing? They were solving a problem within India, which was framed in terms of an exploited divide within India. And this construct, the discourse about what happened, is distinct from what really happened. Is one of the remarkable things about this discourse that British extracted some $45 trillion in current day terms for a 200-year period from India, profoundly impoverishing India, however. But they also rewrote the history of India to represent India as a doomed civilization, could not be redeemed without European intervention. So there are two kinds of Hindudvesha. One is blatant, the other is blind. Blatant is conscious and explicit. Blind is unconscious and implicit. But in both cases, they represent themselves as an unbiased, objective truth, a discourse that represents unbiased, objective truth about the Hindus, literally relentlessly abuses the Hindus and Hinduism, either deliberately or unconsciously, or unconsciously and repetitively. The ambient pressure that is exerted by Hindudvesha is like this. Something must be done to the Hindus. The Hindus must be secularized, westernized, they must be anglicized, modernized, proselytized, converted, Christianized, Islamized. In any case, at the very least, they must be supervised. Worst case, they must be silenced. Now, the problem that this ambient pressure that exerted by Hindudvesha on the Hindus end up being ashamed and embarrassed of their own tradition. They get confused. They feel accused constantly. They have to be on the defensive. And they feel denounced. Now, recognizing Hindudvesha, a checklist. Now, there's a lot on this slide, and I'll try to wrap it up very quickly. Are the Hindu people a legitimate people? Do they have a right to live as Hindus? Well, blatant Hindudvesha would say no, never. Hindus are not a legitimate people. Blind Hindudvesha may say maybe, but with appropriate oversight. Well, oversight from whom? Can the Hindu speak up as a Hindu, or does the Hindu have to be co-opted in order to be legitimate? Blatant Hindudvesha would say no, the Hindu voice must be silenced. Blind Hindudvesha would say maybe they agree and conform. To what extent have the problems in Hindu society been caused by invasions and colonization, during which time the Hindus were completely the victims? Blatant Hindudvesha would not even look at it, not even a little. Such questions are taboo, cannot ask them. Either willfully or blindly, never asked by blind Hindudvesha. Is there anything positive or valuable that Hinduism has contributed to the world? No. Everything positive has to be appropriated, reassigned, allocated as having originated from some other part of the world. Blind Hindudvesha really believes that very little, if anything, if even there was something of value, it was mostly accidental. Okay, so this sort of frames the conversation.